Hey everybody, this is Enter the Stars. This will be one of my longer videos, so you may need to come back to this video, but I wanted to kind of cover the book of Enoch. Okay, there's been some recent activity and discussions on my channel with some of my subscribers who are Christians, and I am too a Christian. I believe in Jesus Christ, but in my search for truth, in my journey for truth, I found all of this additional information that in my previous religious experience as a Jehovah's Witness and as a Seventh-day Adventist, I was basically told not to do these kinds of searches. And there's a reason why that is indoctrinated into us not to search for truth, because there is so much truth out there. And because I believe many religions, not all, but many are created to deceive you, to have you at odds with your brothers and sisters in other parts of the world, and to have you beholden and economically tied to their church. I don't believe that was Jesus' intention. I think spirituality is an individual thing. And that's why Jesus tells us when we pray we must go into a dark place, not pray in front of a bunch of other people. He tells us how to pray in the Bible. So I thought I would cover the book of Enoch, because what this does is it takes us Christians out of our comfort zone, and it helps us to understand that books of the Bible, which are called the Apocrypha, were left out of the Bible that should have been included in the Bible, which tell far more of the story that is involved in God's story that He had for us. It's fascinating, some of the stories that were left out and how much more it gives us in terms of information. I also wrote a screenplay called The Nephilim, based on the book of Enoch, based on the two seeds of man, evil, and then the good seed, which goes through the line of Jesus. And these are actually some of the main stories in the Bible, which we're not told about because we don't get the complete picture. But the seed between God and the devil started and continued on through the Nephilim. And the Nephilim were the giants of the earth, of course. Anyway, my screenplay is listed at the Writers Guild of America, Western Division, under Casey Brown. It's called The Nephilim. I believe people can view that, and actually I have a certificate showing that I submitted that as documentation. And so if anyone uses any of the ideas in that screenplay, they're supposed to, give me credit for it. But of course, I don't care about the credit. I just wanted the information out there, because it tells the rest of the story of the Bible. And in it, I follow the bloodline from the Nephilim, when the fallen angels came down and married women and had children, which were the giants of the earth. And I follow that bloodline all the way down through, and there's key figures in the Bible which were giants and their description. But yet this is never talked about in religion or in our churches. So I'm going to cover the book of Enoch. This book should have been in the Bible. There are actually references to it. It's quoted in other parts of the Bible, but yet it was left out of the Bible. So what you're seeing is only a very small piece of the entire truth. And that's why I encourage everyone to continue seeking truth, and it will set you free as prophesied in the Bible. So without further ado, let's move into this, the book of Enoch. I'll have the link in the description box so you guys can take your time. I'm not going to read this entire thing, but I'm going to go through excerpts of the book that jump out at me, and that I think will be of benefit to you guys. Now, there's a little bit of a commentary here. This man who is actually releasing this book of Enoch, he actually does a little bit of commentary in here, and he talks about, in the end, I was convinced that the book is really Enoch's true account of otherwise forgotten events that occurred in earlier times, events that we have no other surviving records of. Enoch left us a book that describes a people of an advanced culture, blonde-haired people that Enoch's people considered to be angels of God, and it was written on the angel's instruction. So once again, this is just commentary, okay? Now, so he goes on to describe the angels as blonde men who ran away from heaven in order to be promiscuous with women. I don't believe this was the sort of worldview that would have been well received or widely accepted anywhere in 200 BC. So So he says, I concluded the book is probably what it appears to be, well-preserved, ancient, and genuine. Now, the book of Enoch covers, Enoch was the great-grandfather of Noah, father of Methuselah. And this book gives a unique view of the world before the flood, which recent research suggests may have occurred as long ago as 17,000 BC. Okay. Now, a little bit about the history of the book of Enoch. Let's see here. The book is thought to have been lost for over 2,000 years, with many ancient sources referring to it and even quoting parts, but no complete copies were known. Then in 1773, James Bruce brought 3 copies back from Ethiopia, having spent some time exploring the country. There's also a book called the Kebra Nagast. It's an Ethiopian book. It actually talks about the Queen of Sheba. It's an ancient text. It talks about her visiting King Solomon and becoming pregnant. Now, in our modern Bible, we don't hear, it is not stated that the Queen of Sheba became pregnant, but in the Ethiopian texts, they actually talk about her becoming pregnant with King Solomon's child, which King Solomon was from the bloodline of Jesus, right? And then that child comes back to Jerusalem, where Solomon is at that time, and he steals the Ark of the Covenant. Okay, but it's divinely inspired, because that's what God wanted to have happen, because he was moving the ark from the evil, from the Nephilim, opposing armies. Okay, the Philistines, you guys, the Canaanites were all Nephilim armies, and I state this in some of my previous videos. When Aaron and Moses sent scouts to the cliffside, they looked down and they saw the Nephilim, the Canaanites. And when they reported back to Aaron and Moses, they said that they were like grasshoppers in the eyes of the Canaanites. That would make them giants. And then, of course, we have the age-old story of the Philistines with David and Goliath. Okay, David's bloodline was Jesus' bloodline. Goliath was the giant. He was from the Nephilim bloodline. And in, of course, in the Bible, the few references we have to the giants of the earth before the flood, it says that they, in those days and afterwards, there were giants on the earth. So the giants were not destroyed, all of them, in the flood. And I document that in my screenplay. I talk about how the giants survived the flood. And it was actually through Moses' wife. She actually was carrying the Nephilim gene through onto after the flood. And that's how the Canaanites were spawned, and other peoples in the Bible. Okay. There's also a man in the Bible. I believe his name was, I don't want to misquote this here, but there's a man in the Bible who had a bed that was the length of 13 cubits. Okay, you can Google search that, and it should come right up. A cubit is 1.5 feet. So the bed was close to 20 feet long. Okay. So there were giants mentioned all throughout the Bible, but we never learn of this in religion, okay? Unless you do your own research. Now, it says here, we'll continue on with this text here, Enoch had 2 main reasons for writing his book. The first was because the watchers instructed him to do it. The second was to save his family from the flood. Enoch wrote his book after his grandson Lamech was born, but before Noah was born. Noah is only named in the section that Methuselah wrote. Okay, and we're going to get into this later on in this presentation here. Now, kind of scroll down and read this as I'm reading it. Alright, so it says here that copies of the Book of Enoch survived into Egyptian times, 3500 BC, and was known to Moses around 2,000 years later. Moses took a copy with him when he left Egypt, during the Exodus, of course, when he took the Israelites out of Egypt. And he was pleased to see Enoch's prophecy fulfilled. It says the book probably existed mainly in Hebrew, which is typical, like Old Testament is all Hebrew, and all old texts were in Hebrew. Okay. Now, there were Hebrew passages quoted in some of the Aramaic fragments that survive from a few centuries BC. Now, somewhere in here, and I may miss it because I'm scrolling through for time's sake, it does mention that parts of the Book of Enoch are quoted in our modern Bible, which gives validity to the text. Okay. For some reason, the Catholic Church decided to leave the Book of Enoch, along with several other apocryphal texts, out of the Bible. Okay. I'm sure they had their reasons for doing that. Here's some more commentary. This is the story of the fallen angels. The beginning is virtually identical with Genesis. Okay? In Enoch's book, we get their names and many other details. At 6:6, Enoch explains the naming of Mount Hermon. In Hebrew, it means curses. The mountain that he was actually referring to is possibly somewhere near Lake Van in Turkey. And you can find Mount Hermon or Armon, and it is in that modern day place today. Okay, so it is a real mountain, and it was named in the book of Enoch. Now here's the actual book of Enoch. And it came to pass, when the sons of men had increased, that in those days there were born unto them fair and beautiful daughters. And the angels, the sons of heaven, saw them and desired them. And they said to one another, Come, let us choose for ourselves wives from the children of men, and let us beget for ourselves children. Now what you guys have to understand is angels were not given the ability to procreate, okay? So it's the age-old saying, what you don't have, you want it. Well, that's exactly what happened to the angels. The angels were given everlasting life, but they were not given the ability to procreate. So they decided that that's what they wanted to do. So the book of Enoch goes into detail regarding this. And it states here, Semyaza, who was their leader, said to them, I fear that you may not wish this deed to be done, and that I alone will pay for the great sin. So he knew he was stepping into sin to desire what he was desiring, but also he wanted to implicate others in this sin as well. So I guess he somehow thought that he wouldn't have to take as much of the punishment. And they all answered to him, and they said, Let us swear an oath and bind one another with curses, so that not to alter this plan, but to carry out this plan effectively. Then they all swore together, and all bound one another with curses to it. And there were 200 of them, so it actually names there were 200 angels who decided to do this, and they came down on Mount Ardus, which is the summit of Mount Hermon, which is we have in modern day as well. And they called it Hermon because if they swore and bound one another with curses, okay? And it names all the leaders here. I'm not going to go through the names. I don't feel like naming off demons, but you can read them. 200 angels, and they took for themselves wives, okay, and they began to go into them and were promiscuous with them, and they taught them charms and spells, and they showed them the cutting of roots and trees. Now this is important because in actuality there's far more detail that goes on in the book of Enoch to show what the demons taught these people and these women, okay? And this was the reason why God destroyed the earth, because they shared advanced knowledge with humans, okay? And there's more detail later on, and it's fascinating what they showed them. And they became pregnant and bore large giants, and their height was 3,000 cubits. Now, I know that's hard to believe, but 3,000 cubits is about 5,000 feet, which is about a third of, I think, of Mount Everest. They're standing in a valley. Now, the first generation of giants that came out were this tall, and then the second generation and subsequent generations shrunk in size, okay? So it became a lot more manageable. We'll go on here. And they devoured all the toil of men. So toil of men would be like all the men were manufacturing or creating in terms of food and all of that, until they were unable to sustain them. So you can imagine at that size they would not be able to sustain these giants. The giants turned against them, and they devoured men. So the giants started eating people. And then they began to sin against birds, animals, reptiles, fish, and they devoured one another's flesh and drank blood from it. Okay? They started so basically what they're saying is they started eating each other. Now, the sinning against the birds and the animals and things, you guys, I really believe, and I don't know this, but I believe that this is the altering of genetics, okay? And you'll understand why I can make this assumption later on when we read in the text about the types of things that are described in here that the demons taught man. They had advanced knowledge, okay? They couldn't maybe create things, but they could alter creation. I believe that what they're talking about here are dinosaurs. And that's why God, when he destroyed the earth with the flood, it wiped out the dinosaurs as well. He was wiping out the sin of the Nephilim and their offspring, which is the adjustment of genetic material. So we've got birds, animals, reptiles, and fish. To me, those sound like dinosaurs. Okay. Then the earth complained about the lawless ones, and Azazel taught men to make swords. Okay, this is what they taught men to make. Swords, daggers, and shields, and breastplates. Okay. They showed them the things after these and the art of making them. bracelets, ornaments, the art of making up the eyes and the beautifying of the eyelids, makeup, and jewelry, and the most precious stones and all kinds of colored dyes. So we've got diamonds in there, we've got red dyes, and the world was changed. Okay, so this is why God became so angry with these people. And there was great impiety and such much fornication, and they went astray, and all their ways had become corrupt. This other demon taught them how to cast spells and cut roots. The release of spells, astrologers, portents, astrology, taught the path of the moon. So these are all things man really didn't need to know. Some of them were probably truths, but there were things God did not want us to know. And then, this is one of my favorite verses in this entire text, that the destruction of men they cried out, and their voices reached heaven. Okay? And they saw the mass of blood that was being shed on the earth, and all the iniquity that has been done on the earth. And they said to one another, let the devastated earth cry out with the sounds of their cries up to the gate of heaven. Okay? So you guys, here are some of the pieces of the earlier parts of the book of Enoch that really show its validity. Okay, I'm going to read through this here. He says, contemplate all the events in the sky, and how the lights in the sky do not change their courses, how each rises and sets in order, each at its proper time, and they do not transgress their law. Consider the earth and understand from the work that is done upon it from the beginnings to the end, and no work of God changes as it becomes manifest. Consider the summer and the winter, how the whole earth is full of water, and clouds and dew and rain rest upon it. Contemplate and see how all the trees appear withered, and all their leaves are stripped, with the exception of 14 trees, which are not stripped, which remain with the old leaves until the new come after 2 or 3 years. These would be evergreens, you guys. And there are actually 14 evergreen varieties of trees. I looked it up. How did this ancient text know there were exactly 14 varieties of evergreen trees? Unless you had knowledge of the Creator. Okay. Talks about here, contemplate the days of summer. How does it beginning? The sun is above it. At its beginning, the sun is above it. You seek shelter and shade because of the heat of the sun, and the earth burns with scorching heat, and you cannot tread upon the earth or upon the rock because of its heat. The trees were covered with green leaves and bear fruit. Okay, so it's talking about creation here. Okay. Now this talks about the exposure of the secrets of heaven. Okay. Now what he says here is, this is in the book of Enoch. You have made everything, and power over everything is yours, and everything is uncovered and open in front of you, and you see everything, and there is nothing that can be hidden from you, talking about God. See then what Azazel has done. He has taught all iniquity on the earth and revealed the eternal secrets that are made in heaven. And Samyaza has made known spells, he to whom you give an authority to rule over those who are with him. And they went into the daughters of men and women they laid with, and became unclean. So, God finally addresses it. It says, and then the Most High, the Great and Holy One, spoke and sent Arziliah or whatever to the son of Lamech, and said to them, say to them in my name, hide yourself, and reveal to him the end which is coming, because the whole earth will be destroyed. So here God is prophesying about the great flood. A deluge is about to come on the earth, and all that is in it will be destroyed. And now teach him so that he may escape, and his offspring may survive for the whole earth. Okay. And further the Lord said to Raphael, bind Azazel in the hands and his feet, and throw him into darkness, and split open the desert which is in Doodle, and throw him in there. So this was basically the judgment of the fallen angels for what they had done. And throw him on jagged and sharp stones, and cover him with darkness, and let him stay there forever, and cover his face so that he may not see the light. and so that on the great day of judgment he may be hurled in the fire. Okay, the great day of judgment, which we all know is coming. And restore the earth with the angels have ruined, and announce the restoration of the earth. For I shall restore the earth, so that not all the sons of men shall be destroyed because of the knowledge which the watchers made known and taught to their sons. So the main theme was the knowledge that was given to the sons of men by the watchers, or the fallen angels. This is very important, you guys, okay, because this is what's the big white elephant in the room that's missing in the Bible. And the whole earth has been ruined by the teachings of the works of Azazel, and against him write all sin. So all sin is ascribed to this demon here. And he said, so this is how God is going to handle it. And this is what's covered in my screenplay about the bloodlines, the rivaling bloodlines going out down throughout history. He says, proceed against the bastards, fatherless children, and the reprobates, and against the sons of the fornicators, and destroy the sons of the fornicators and the sons of the watchers from amongst them, and send them out and send them against one another, and let them destroy themselves in battle. So he made them destroy each other, for they will not have length of days. And then he put a time limit on their age. He said, they hope for eternal life, but each of them will live for only 500 years. So then God says to Michael, inform them of this judgment. They will see the destruction of their loved ones. Bind them for 70 generations under the hills of the earth until the day of their judgment and their consummation. You guys, this is the first time we've seen an exact number. When you count 70 generations from the time this was supposedly written, it puts us smack dab in the middle of where we are right now in our time in history. 70 generations is where we're at here, right around the new millennium. Okay? So, and in those days they will lead them to the abyss of fire and the torment, and in prison they will be shut up for all eternity. So basically they have been bound, put under the earth, the angels that did this, but their offspring are still on the planet. They will kill each other through wars, and also be at enmity with Jesus' seed, fighting. They'll be run down, destroyed over time. Okay, and then in the day of judgment, there will have a second judgment. Okay, hopefully you guys are following this. Okay, and then the righteous will be humble, and they'll live until they beget thousands. This is after the day of judgment, and all the days of their youth and their Sabbath they will fulfill in peace. And in those days the whole earth will be tilled in righteousness, and all of it will be planted with trees, and will be filled with blessing. This is what we have to look forward to, you guys. And all the pleasant trees they will plant on it, and they will plant it on vines, and the vine that is planted on it will produce fruit in abundance. Okay. Now this portion of the book of Methuselah actually talks about a discussion that Methuselah had with Lamech. Now what it says is, in the days of the son of Methuselah chose a wife for his son Lamech, and she became pregnant with him and bore a son. And his body was white like snow and red like the flower of a rose, and his hair, the hair of his head was like white wool, and his eyes were beautiful. And when he opened his eyes, he made the whole house bright like the sun, so that the whole house was exceptionally bright. And when he was taken from the hand of his midwife, he opened his mouth, and he spoke to the Lord of righteousness. So this is Noah, who they're describing here, you guys. When Noah was born, he was a special child, and he glowed, and he lit up the room, literally, with his glory. And he actually spoke as an infant, which is a miracle. But the father Lamech was afraid of him, and he fled and went to his father Methuselah. And he said to him, I have begotten a strange son. He is not like a man, but it is like the children of the angels of heaven, of a different type, not like us. And his eyes are like the rays of the sun, and his face glorious. It seems to me that he is not sprung from me, but from angels, and I am afraid that something extraordinary may be done on the earth in his days. So, you guys, Lamech's afraid because the Nephilim had already proliferated the earth at this time, and he was afraid that his child was a Nephilim child, and he knew that this was a curse. So he's just begging to his father here to ask him, do you know something about this? I'm worried. And now, my father, I'm entreating you and petitioning you to go to our father Enoch and learn from him the truth, for his dwelling is with the angels. When Methuselah heard the words of his son, he came to me at the ends of the earth, for he had heard that I was there, and he cried out, and I heard his voice and went out to him, and I said to him, Behold, I am here, my son, for you have come to me. And he answered me and said, Because of a great matter I have come to you, and because of the disturbing vision I have come near. And now hear me, my father, for a child has been born to my son Lamech, whose form and type are not the type of a man. His color whiter than snow and redder than the flower of the rose, and his head is whiter than white wool. And his eyes are like the rays of the sun. And he opened his eyes and made the whole house bright. And he was taken from the hand of the midwife, and he opened his mouth and blessed the Lord of heaven. And his father Lamech was afraid and fled to me, and he does not believe he has sprung from him, but thinks him to be from the angels of heaven. And behold, I have come to you. So Enoch answered him, he said, The Lord will do things on earth, and this I have already seen in a vision and made known to you. For in the generation of my father Jared, some from the height of heaven transgress the word of the Lord. That would be the Nephilim. And behold, they commit sin and transgress the law. They've been promiscuous with women. God will make destruction of the whole earth. But this child who has been born to you will be left on the earth. That's Noah. And his 3 sons will be saved with him. When all the men who are on the earth die, and he and his sons shall be saved. They will beget on the earth giants, not of spirit, but of flesh. And they will become wrath on the earth. And the earth will be cleansed of all the corruption. So, he says, And now make known to your son Lamech that the one who has been born is truly his son. And he called his name Noah, for he was the remnant for you. And he and his sons will be saved from destruction, will be coming on the earth because of all the sin and iniquity which will be committed on the earth in his days. But after this there will be yet a greater iniquity than that one which was committed on the earth before. For I know the mysteries of the holy ones, for the Lord showed them to me and made them known to me, and I read them in the tablets of heaven. Okay? So, this is the story of Noah. Now, we don't get this story in the Bible. It does not tell us that Noah was special like this. We only learn of it in the book of Enoch. Hopefully this whets your interest in the book of Enoch, you guys. There's far more here, but I could go on for literally probably an hour. This is an amazing text. It shows the rest of the story of what happened with the Nephilim, which is only mentioned in a few verses in our modern day Bible. And it should also give you an indication that you may think you know the truth, and you may have been taught to only rely on the Bible, but there is far, far, far more information out there for you to learn. And it is the rabbit hole. And as you uncover truth, you will find that your faith will grow tenfold, because God will be real to you in a real way. Not just faith alone, but in physical, solid, mathematical evidence and history, true history. Okay? So we'll leave it at that, and maybe I'll cover more of this at a future date, but hopefully you guys enjoyed that. Take care.